Assalamu alaikum students. Today the topic of our discussion is overview of circulation, and this is the first lecture on circulation. These are first of all we will study very basic concepts about circulation and what are the types of circulation and what are the parts of blood vessel. So firstly we will study physical characteristics of the circulation. Circulation is divided into systemic and pulmonary circulation. Very simple. Systemic circulation supplies blood flow to all the tissues of the body except the lungs. It is also called the greater circulation or peripheral circulation. So the circulation except the circulation of lungs is called systemic circulation, peripheral circulation, or greater circulation. Now the functional parts of the arteries, these are very basic concepts you have already studied in your intermediate and previous classes. The arteries transport blood under high pressure to the tissues, having strong vascular walls, and blood flows at a high velocity in the arteries. So the arteries, first part is the arteries, and arteries have a very high blood pressure because they are the starting point from the heart. The heart firstly ejects blood into the arteries, so the arteries have a high blood pressure, and they have a strong vascular walls as they have a lot of collagen in their walls, and blood flows at high velocity in the arteries. Arterioles act as the second part after arteries is arterioles, and the arterioles act as a conduit through which blood is released into the capillaries, having a strong muscular walls that can close the arterioles completely or dilate it several folds, thus having the capacity of vastly altering blood flow in each tissue bed in response to the need of the tissue. So the blood goes to the tissues depends on the need of the tissue, the metabolic need of the tissue. So these can control the blood to the capillaries by either contraction or either dilation. And the capillaries exchange fluid, nutrients, electrolytes, hormones, and other substances between the blood and the interstitial spaces. Thus, capillary walls are very thin and have numerous capillary pores permeable to water and other small molecular substances. After arterioles, then are the capillaries, and capillaries are important in the exchange of gases and nutrients between blood and tissue. And then is the venules. The capillaries combine to form venules. Venules collect blood from capillaries and they gradually coalesce into progressively larger veins. So the vein functions as a conduit for transport of blood from the venules back to the heart and serving as a major reservoir of extra blood and have thin muscular walls. So the veins have thin muscular walls, and they act as a reservoir for the blood. So the blood stores here, the extra amount of blood stores here. So the important thing about veins is they are reservoir for extra blood, and the important thing for capillaries, there is exchange of fluid and nutrients and electrolytes and gases, and the important thing for arterioles is they are conduit which control the blood that is going into the capillaries either by contraction or relaxation. Volumes of blood in different parts of the circulation. The major share of the blood is in veins, venules, and venous system. This is the diagram from Guyton. 9% in pulmonary circulation, 7% in heart, and pressure in various portions of the circulation, the systolic pressure is 120 millimeter of mercury and diastolic pressure is 80 millimeter of mercury. You know it already. And the pressure in the systemic capillaries are 35 is a 35 millimeter of mercury, and at the arteriolar end and at the venular end of the capillaries the pressure is 10 millimeter of mercury. So the blood moves from high pressure to low pressure, from arteriolar end to venous end, and the average pressure of vascular bed is about 17 millimeter of mercury. And the pulmonary artery systolic pressure averages about 25 millimeter of mercury, and diastolic pressure 8 millimeter of mercury, low due to needs of lungs. You can see here. You can see here. This is the systemic circulation. Here is 120. And here is 80. So here is the systolic, here is diastolic. And in case of pulmonary, you can see here this is 25 and this is almost 8 millimeter of mercury. So then the peak on the lower side is the diastolic, and peak on the upper side is systolic. Okay. An importance of a cross-sectional area, a much larger cross-sectional area of the veins than arteries, average about 4 times those of the corresponding arteries. So veins have more cross-sectional area than arteries, about 4 times more. And this explains the large storage of blood in the venous system in comparison with the arterial system. So there is a lot of blood stored in the veins, the extra blood stores in the veins, because they have large cross-sectional area. The velocity of blood flow is inversely proportional to vascular cross-sectional area. This point should be discussed in detail. You can realize this point from the following example. Thus, under resting conditions, the velocity averages about 33 centimeter of 33 centimeter per second in the aorta. So the velocity is 33 centimeter per second in aorta, but only 1/1000 as rapidly in capillaries, about 0.3 millimeter per second. So the velocity, you can see here, the blood can travel 33 centimeter in a second, and in capillaries 0.3 millimeter in a second. So the blood in the aorta, the speed of the velocity of the blood in aorta is more as compared to capillaries. Why? Because the aorta has less cross-sectional area than capillaries. You can see here, aorta has 2.5 centimeter square cross-sectional area, while capillaries have 2500 centimeter square cross-sectional area. Because we should see here that all the capillaries of the body have cross-sectional area 2500. So capillaries have more cross-sectional area than aorta, and that's why the aorta has less cross-sectional area but has a greater velocity, and the lesser velocity of blood in the capillaries is important, so that there is maximum exchange